From Ponjemfi. I'm a software engineer with Naraso Ghana Limited. Basically, I do front-end engineering and then product design and architecture. So I hope today we can have a wonderful time with the concepts that is outlined for us to study. I also understand that this class is a front-end engineering class, so we will try as much as possible to be more practical with what will be delivered. In the case of questions, please feel free to use the emojis or the signs in Zoom to prompt my attention. Where the network isn't good or the delivery isn't good at your end, feel free, you can just send a message in the chat. If I mention something that you didn't get, feel free and then draw my attention to repeat that. All right. In this session, we are going to look at JavaScript objects and then some parts of JavaScript arrays. Then in the next session, that I think is supposed to be the Friday or Saturday, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll look at the other parts of arrays and then functions. All right. Before I continue, if you have any question pertaining what I've said so far, just let me know, and I will do my best to explain myself again. Okay. Right. Any question? Please feel free. I would like this class to be more interactive so that we can do more practical than just theory, right? If you have any question, feel free, drop in the chat and I'll do my best to answer that. So at the moment we are about 21 in the meeting. Hopefully we can get a lot of numbers before the meeting ends. Right, so let's look at the concept of objects. I believe some of us have done some programming languages like Python, Java, C++. And I also know that some of you just want to transit into tech. And so some of these concepts are not known to you. So I'm seeing some microphones unmuted. If there are questions that are coming in, please draw my attention by using the chat session for me. If not, then I think I can continue. So like I was saying, for those of you who have some prior experience with programming, you might have come across object-oriented programming. And object-oriented programming simply consider programming in a manner where everything is treated as an object. For instance, you can model a car as an object, and usually we consider it as a class, but I will do my best to differentiate between the two. Now, please note how we approach objects in JavaScript may somehow be different or a little slightly different from what you know from your Java lessons or Java skills or Java knowledge. So with Java, C++, and other languages, you strictly have an object by instantiating a class, meaning that you create a class and then you create an object out of a class. But with the JavaScript, you can create an object, literally you can create an object and then put in some properties. So today we are going to look at some few things, which I'm hoping we can make it very practical. So I have some notes here that I'll be going through. Just a minute. Yes, so if there's any question, just feel free, let me know and I'll address that. Right. So if no, we are going to look at what objects are in JavaScript. Then we'll look at how to create an object. We'll also look at assessing object properties. What are even object properties at all? Creating new properties or new property in an object, deleting, looping. Is someone trying to ask a question? Okay, so I suppose that was a mistake. Looping through an object, and then we can finally look at how to create functions in objects. So let me share my screen and let's start doing something. Please let me know if you can see my screen. I am projecting my Visual Studio Code screen alongside the terminal. Please let me know if you can see that. Okay, excellent.
Yes,
thanks for the feedback.
You can see your screen.
All right,
so,
thanks.
So
Yes, please go ahead. Yeah, I think we're saying something. Please go ahead.
Yeah. So
Marvelous.
I said if anyone has a question, I would notify you, and I would read out the question so you don't have to go through that stress. Okay.
Right. That's fine. That's fine.
All right.
Okay. All right. Great. So let's try to at first.
Yeah. So the host, can you please just mute everybody upon entry?
Okay, so someone is saying that it's too tiny. If you say it's too tiny, I believe you are talking about the text size. I've increased it. I don't know if it's okay. Casey Ugu. Sorry if I don't mention your name.
I think you can increase it again.
Oh, okay. Let me.
Yeah, including that of the terminal, so the audience can see it well. Thank you.
Okay, that's fine. I don't know if this is okay. Let me try 35. I think this should be better.
Yeah, this is fine.
Should be better. Okay. All right, good. So let's try to understand what objects really are. Now, objects or JavaScript object is a data type. Okay, that's the first thing you should know. Now, when it comes to JavaScript, we have primitive data types and we have the non-primitive data types. The primitive data types are the strings, the numbers, those ones, the very basic ones, those are the primitive data types. And objects finds itself as part of the non-primitive data type. Now, it stores data collections as properties in the form of key value pairs. Now, the concept of objects is compared. Okay, so the concept of object is compared to a cabinet of files, okay, or a shelf of files or books, right? Now, if you consider a library shelf, where let's say an English, or let's say library, okay, we put the shelves into the course, the available subjects, right? So you can see English language, you can see core mathematics, elective mathematics, and all that. Now, if you consider one shelf, each shelf has a name attached to it. Bringing or translating it into the concept of objects, we call that a key, right? So the name of the shelf, and each shelf is having a book inside it. So the book becomes the value. So when we are talking about objects, we are talking about a data collection type where you treat the content of it as properties. And properties, Rita, please, someone is writing my screen. Please check that for me, okay? And these properties exist in the form of key value pair, which we'll look at in some few seconds. Now, how do we create an object? There are two ways of creating an object. The first approach is creating an object using the object constructor. If you have done classes before in any other programming languages, you know what a constructor is. Constructor simply initiates an object or a class. Okay, so the first approach or the first way of doing that, or one of the ways of doing that, is using the object constructor. So you do something like this. So let person to be equal to new object. Okay, so this is the way of creating an object using the constructor approach. Now, there's a likelihood that as a front-end developer, you might not be using this approach unless you are building a very complex application where you want to be strict. In that case, you are likely going to be doing TypeScript, and then you may want to go into the very details of creating an object. If not, then you would go by, so let me put a comment here, just so people can take note. So this is using the object constructor syntax. Okay. I believe the streaming is going on well. If you cannot hear me, please feel free and draw my attention.
We can hear you.
All right, excellent. And the other approach, which is a very common one, is using the object literal syntax. So object literal syntax, what it means is you create, so let's say, let user to be equal to, then you have two curly brackets. So these two approach would help you to create an object which is empty. You have no properties inside. Okay, so someone is saying that I should reduce the size of the data a bit smaller. I'm very sorry, I may not be able to do that because I'm using an extended monitor. So everyone can see clearly, right? Sorry, Jimo. So let me put a comment here. So using the object literal syntax, okay? Right, so we have created two different objects which are empty, right? Have no properties inside of them. Now, we need to look at the reasons why we may even consider objects in the first place. Now, imagine having your front-end application being built where you have to connect to an API, which will be fetching you some data from a database. The data that will be coming from the database through the API will definitely come in the form of array of objects or objects of object or object of arrays. Well, whichever way it will come, you're going to treat the data in a form of object. Now, let's take, for instance, if we have a student's database, and with a student's database, we want to fetch the data using the student's API, okay? You are likely going to see something of this sort. So let's say, let me put this in a variable form. So student being equal to, and these are the properties that you are likely going to see. So name, maybe Isaac, date of birth, and then maybe you can have some dates here. Okay, maybe student ID. and you might have some numbers here, right? So it is important to understand how object works, because the data you will be having will come in a form like this, usually in a JSON format for you. So I don't know if you've learned the JSON states where you can pass it as a string or convert it into an object. Just making an assumption. So this is okay, not yet. Okay, that's fine. I'm sure you'll get that later on. So this is an example of an object which is having some properties. So whenever I mention properties, I am looking at something like this. So the name and then the value, the date of birth and its value, student ID and its value. These are what we consider properties. Now, when we take each property exists as a key value pair, meaning that each property has a name, right? Each property has a name, and adjacent to the name, sorry, not adjacent, and then the value of that property, okay, the value of that property is just a value, okay. So for example, on line 9, we are having name as the key and then Isaac as the value. Another thing to consider is that, oh, people are saying I should reduce the screen size. It means that it's really a big problem. Okay, just hold on.
It's okay. The size is very okay.
Okay, so Ekene, okay, Ekene, please try to bear with me. Okay, please try to bear with me. All right, so yeah, let me go back to what I was saying. So it is safe to say that an object has different data types inside it. What I'm trying to say is, now the properties that I'm having here, they are all having string values, but I can have something like this. Resident, let me see, is resident. Which can be a Boolean value, okay, which can be a Boolean value. And we can have something like height. So let's say 5.9, which is a floating point value, or what in math you would say a decimal. What you may say a decimal. Okay, someone is saying that the size is okay, that's fine. All right, so we have modeled the students and we have been able to assign values to it. Now, one thing I want you to understand is that when you go forward and then you do classes, you'll be creating, you'll be modeling a student by setting the properties and then the methods, okay? But when you are doing objects, you can just put in the values, right? But just so you know how to deal with objects, this is how you create an object. Now let's move on. The next thing that we want to know is how to assess the various properties. Okay, how to assess the various properties of an object. Now there are two ways of doing that. The first one is using the dot notation, and then the second one is using the squared brackets. Now the dot notation is a very common way of assessing. So let me say assessing an object's property. Okay, so the dot notation is a very common way of assessing a property. Now, what do I mean by assessing a property? Assessing property is simply you being able to get access to the value of a property. You being able to get access to the value of a property. So if I want to get access to the value stored inside the date of birth, which is the DOB, how do I go by it? Okay, how do I approach it? So using the dot notation, we are having a syntax in this format. So the object, let me make it a comment, object name dot the property name. Okay, the object name dot the property name. So always make sure that you know the object that you are trying to invoke. Okay, so someone is saying when declaring Boolean data type, must the is prefix be put before? Okay, so you don't necessarily need to bring the is as a prefix for initiating a Boolean value, but by way of being able to relate, okay, because one thing you need to understand is that if you're going to be a program, okay, someone says I can't just understand. Jimo, I don't know if I've been joining the previous sessions, but what we are doing is JavaScript objects. So I don't know how strange it is. I'm not sure you've done it. Looking at your calendar, I'm not sure you've done it. So it's a new lesson or topic that I'm treating. Right, so back to the question that was being asked. You don't necessarily need to bring the is as a prefix, right? But as a convention, let me put it that way, or as a way of writing codes that is efficient, if I say efficient, with ability, where anybody can relate to. Because as a developer, you're not going to build softwares all by yourself every now and then. You're going to build softwares which are going to be used by, which are going to be co-developed by other developers. And in that case, you want to write code in a way that any other person who is on board, any other developer who is also working on the same code base would easily understand. Okay, right. So let's say I want to get access to my name. Okay, by way of accessing using the dot notation approach. So console.log, I want to print it in my terminal. So students, I like the questions that are coming in. So students dot name, okay, and I have IntelliSense in my Visual Studio Code by virtue of some of the extensions that I have installed. So that makes it even easier. So I'll come to my terminal and then I'll run this code. I'll run this file. So node object, okay, and I am getting Isaac, right? One quick thing that you need to know and which would help you in your debugging skills is anytime you want to print something in your terminal, because you may have a lot of console.log in your code, you want to be able to differentiate between each one of them that you are printing. So I'll do something like student name. Yeah, the extension, look for npm IntelliSense. npm IntelliSense. Yeah, I think that's the name. So I am putting this string there so that when I run this code, I would know that this is coming from this line. Just by the way, it's very good for your debugging skills, right? Okay, so I can take this one off. Okay, so that's very easy. That's very easy. I can do the same for.
I think you should zoom in on the terminal.
Come again?
I think you should zoom in on the terminal, yeah.
Let me see. I'm not sure I can do that. Okay, let me open a terminal, a different terminal. Just some few minutes ago. Hold on. Okay. Let me close this. Okay. So let me share my screen once again. Okay. Is it good now? Please let me know. Is it good? Is the size okay?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So node. Okay, that's good. That's good. Oh, I opened PowerShell instead. Okay, that's fine. Right. So just a recap of what we have done so far. We have looked at what objects are. We have looked at how we can create an object. We said there are two ways of creating an object: using the using the object constructor, and then using the object literal. And then we created an example of an object. Then finally, we are looking at how to access an object property. So the first one is using the object notation. Now the second one is using the squared bracket. Now let's see, at what point would you consider using the squared bracket? Let's take for instance, you have an object where a property is having some spaces in between strings. So let's say house address, okay? Let's say number 2 Ikeja Street, okay, something like this. Okay, so if I want to get access to this property, right, I cannot do house space address. That will not work. That will give me an error. So what you do is you use the squared bracket notation, and then inside it, now you can see that you can get access to the house address. So save this and then run the code again, and then I'm getting the value stored inside the house address property or the house address key. Someone is asking, where is the terminal from? There's a Windows terminal. It is a Windows terminal. Okay, so someone is saying that there is a quotation mark close to the address property. There is a quotation mark close to the address property. Do you want to know why it's that way? Yes, if that's what you're trying to ask, it is because of the space in between. Now, if I take this out, okay, you can see that my terminal gives me an error. Okay, gives me an error. Yes, so there is a terminal which is embedded in Visual Studio Code, but I'm using it so that I can zoom in for you. Okay, I'm using it so that I can zoom in for you. Okay, any question up to this point, feel free, let me know. Because of our time, I'll have to run quickly. So please let me know if you have any question, okay? Just put in the comments section and then I will do my best to answer. Okay, so someone is saying, what is the extension being used to run the code on the terminal? The terminal is already embedded inside the Visual Studio Code, so you don't need an extension for that, but there's a different extension which is in the operating system. All right, let's proceed. Okay, let's proceed. So the next thing we are going to look at is now that I have created my object. Okay, so I created an object student, and then I initialize it with some values. What if I want to add another value to another property to it? What do I do? If I want to add another property to it, what do I do? Okay, so someone says that, can we use camel case instead of the quotation? Yes, you can. Like what we have here. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Yes. I don't seem to understand the quotation on the address. You didn't get an error without it. Oh, you sure? Okay, let me do that. Okay, can you see that? So you can see that my Visual Studio Code or my editor is telling me that there is something wrong. Yes, yes. So there is. Okay. All right. Yeah, marvelous. Thanks for helping me with a question. Okay, the questions. Yeah. So let's continue. So to create creating a new property, okay, of an object. How does that work? Okay, how does that work? So if you want to create a new property, you first of all need to know the object that we are trying to create the property inside. So in our case, we are trying to add a property to the student. We are trying to add a property to the student object. So we'll do student dot, and then we can add. Okay, so students dot, let's say status is equal to maybe you can say online. Okay, so we have this. I'm sure you are aware that JavaScript is it's a script language, so it interprets. I don't know if you know that, but maybe I'm being too technical here. What I'm trying to say is that the code compiles from the top. Okay, so it's line by line. Okay, so having this, if I have to, okay, someone is saying that it doesn't get the difference between the dot and then the square. Okay, simply put, the square bracket is used when there's spaces in between a string. Okay, in between a string of an object property. Okay, in between a string. So for example, this. Okay, all right, let's continue. I'm sure the recording will be available so you can watch it later. Okay, so I've added by virtue of line 23, I've added a property that is status. I've added property status, and then I've set the value to be online to the student object. So I can just do console.log, and then I have students. Okay, students. So let me just try to print this whole thing, and then let's see what we are getting. Okay, so you can see here, now I'm having the status property added to the previously created object. All right, I think we can continue. Okay, so another thing that we can also look at is looping through an object, which we can use the for in approach or the for in syntax. Okay, the for in syntax. Okay, any question up to this point, please let me know if there is any question. Is someone asking a question? Feel free. I understand that this class is a very basic class, so I don't want to rush you through things. So please let me know if there's a question. Okay. I think there is no question, so I can proceed. Okay. What about for loop? So for loops are used for arrays. We'll do that when we get to arrays. I don't know if we can do, I'm not sure we can do all the arrays today, but maybe we can do our best to finish it in the next meeting that we'll have. Okay. Yeah, in the next meeting that we'll have. Any other question? Okay, if no, then I think I can proceed. So we can, I'll get to the for in, but let me talk about how to delete an object, an object property. So there is a special key or a reserved key or keyword in JavaScript, which is delete. So delete, and then I need to invoke the object's name, so that is student dot then the property that I'm trying to delete. So let's say I want to delete height. Okay. So now let me So let me bring this code here and let me put a comment here. So delete height from student object. Okay. So let me run this, and then let's see what we're getting. Okay. So you can see here, compared to the last log that we had, the last object that we had, which included height. This time around, we are not seeing height here. We are not seeing height here. So means our code worked without any error. Without any error. Okay. So these are the basics of objects that you should know that you are likely to be working with from time to time as a front-end engineer. As a front-end engineer. Any question? The reason I'm asking any question is I know some of you have read extensively, so I may not mention things that you know that you're expecting me to talk about.
Yeah,
but I'm also
Isaac, sorry. So what I'm doing is for some of the questions that I feel I can just handle on the chat, I will do that. But for some other questions that are important, very important for you to handle, I would inform you so that we can have enough time, to go through what you have for us. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
All right.
That's fine. All right. So I think we spent about 30 minutes of our time. Let's quickly, a second. Okay, so let's quickly jump into arrays and then look at some introductory parts of arrays, hoping that we can cover some concepts in arrays. Now, I want to take you to computer science, or maybe say data structures. When we talk about array, right? For those of you who have done the type languages, you know that before you create an array, you set the type, you set the data type of the array. But with JavaScript, you can create an array and then put any data types or any values of or elements of different data types in the same array. Now, how do we create an array? Arrays have similar characteristics as the objects. Like I said, building your front end, you're going to connect with an API, or you're going to connect to a database through an API. And so the data that will be coming likely come in a form of object or form of array of objects. Okay, so if you are fetching something like student data will come in a form of array of objects. Will come in a form of array of objects. And if you are fetching only one student, that will come in a form of object. Okay, a form of object only. So let's look at how we can create an array. Two main approach. The first one is using the array class, okay, or the array constructor. Okay, so we have let array, okay, to be equal to new array, okay, to be equal to the new array. So you can see in my editor, it is asking for the array length, which is optional. In some programming languages, it is required for you to put the value there. So the array length is supposed to be a number. Okay, it's supposed to be a number. All right. So this is one approach. The other approach is you having just an empty square bracket, having just an empty square bracket. All right. So now let's look at a significant difference between an object and then an array. A significant difference between an object and an array. An array is considered as a list. Okay, an array is considered as a list. Those of you who have done Python before, you know what a list is. So, collection of values. Okay, but an object, you are collecting properties, which I said the properties are in the form of key value pair. Key value pair. So, if I want to give values to the array, let me just comment this out. If I want to give or initialize the array, let me just make it student so that I don't say array. So students array, I am going to have something like this. So Isaac, Emma, Thomas. Okay, good. So what I've created is a simple array, but you can see that I just put in the values. These are considered as elements. Now, I told you that the data can be in a form of array of objects. So I can have something like this, where I would say name is equal to, and then I can do something like this. Okay, I can do something like this. Let me bring this to next slide. Okay, where I can do something like this. So now I'm having a string, I'm having an object, and gladly I can have a number all in the same array, all in the same array. Moving on. Okay. All right, moving on. Let's look at how we can get access to the values stored inside an array. So when we were talking about object, we said that with the object, if you want to access any property, you use either the dot notation or the square bracket notation. But with arrays, you are looking at using the index of the object. Sorry, the index of the element. Okay, the index of the element. Now, what are these index? Now, the index are simply the identifier of each memory space, okay, inside the array. What it simply means is, consider an array as a data collection, okay, or a space that you have created in your computer memory, right? Now, the index would serve as pointers for you to be able to print each value or the desired value that you want to see. Okay, so looking at what we are having here, So I'm having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm having 5 different elements stored inside the student array. So if I want to print, let's say, Isaac, right? Isaac is a string inside the student array. I should be able to identify the index of Isaac before I can print that. Index starts from 0 and continues. Index starts from 0 and then continue. So at index 0, we are having Isaac. Index 1, we are having Ima, and it goes on and on till the last value, okay? Sorry, the last element. So if I want to print, let's say, Ima, I'll just do console.log, and then I will do students. Okay. Then using my square bracket, I would look for I'll point to the index of Ima, which in this case, if we start from Isaac, we are having 0. We are having 0 and then Ima being 1. So let me just put this here. And then I'll go to my terminal. Okay, so I'll go to my terminal. Let me just clear my screen. Okay, and do node objects. Oh, sorry, I'm calling a different file. So this is arrays. Okay, so you can see I'm having Ima printed. I'm having Ima printed. Very simple. So let's also try to print the objects that we have, which I believe you all agree with me per what I've said so far, that the index would be so 0, 1, 2, 3. So index 3. So let me put that here, save it, and then run it over here. And I'm having my object printed for me. Very, very simple. Very, very simple. We can also replace the values. Okay, we can also replace the values. Okay, so if I want to replace the values, let me comment this one out. Let's say I want to change Isaac to a different string. I just have to do I just have to invoke or call the array name. So students, and then I specify the index that I'm looking at, or I'm trying to change its value. So in this case, Isaac is at index 0, equal to, and then I say Genfi. Okay. So now let me print the whole array and let's see what we are getting. Okay. So let me run that. And now you can see that we are no more having Isaac, but we are having Genfi replacing Isaac. Okay. We're having Genfi replacing Isaac. So let me do that. So let me put a comment here. Replacing an element. Okay. Any question up to this point? Any question up to this point? Yes. Someone is already speeding. Someone is already speeding. Someone is asking, how do you check if an element is part of an array? Yes, we'll get there. Okay, we'll get there. Right. Any question from what I've taught so far? Any question from what I've taught so far? If you didn't get anything, just feel free, let me know. Okay. Okay,
so someone is asking, how do you check if an element is part of an array?
Yes, I'll get there, but I want to find out what I've said, because I know I'm going fast. That's what I want to know. I'll get there, don't worry.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Isaac,
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let me hear you.
Okay, like I want to understand, like from my little knowledge of arrays, like I was made to understand that it could only hold elements of the same data type. And in our array here, in students, we also have we have different data types. So I want to understand, like, is it different for JavaScript, or like is it also possible for other languages?
Okay, I think I've answered that. Yes, I think I've already answered that question. I want to know if anyone heard me answering that question. Okay, so basically, okay, when you talk about programming languages, you're having two types, okay? From broad perspective, right? We are having loosely typed programming languages, and we have strongly typed programming languages. So what you know, okay, maybe let's say Java or C++, right? Where when you are creating an array, okay, when you are creating an array, you will set the data type of the array. So if let's say it's an integer, you will specify that the array you are creating is an integer. So the values that you can put in there are all integers. But with JavaScript, okay, it's loosely typed. Okay, so you don't worry about the data type of what you are putting in there. Does it answer your question? Does it answer your question? The person who has it, does it answer your question? Let me know. Okay, okay, okay. Okay. So I've missed some questions here. Let me see. So someone says, how do you print the objects? How do you print the object element in an array? I'm sure you're trying to say, how do you print the properties, right? The property values of an object. That's a very good question. So what you do is this, okay? Now, you first have to identify the index. Okay, I think someone was trying to answer. Yes, you have to identify the index. And what is the index of the object that we have in here? It is 3, okay? Let me go back to that. So 3, right? Then once you are able to access, get access to the object, let's look at what were the properties there. Okay, so we had name. Okay, so dot name. Okay, so let me run that for our friend to see. So you can see that I'm having James printed, even though James was not part of the very element that we have in the array, but James is being printed. Okay, good. I like the submission. That makes the class very interesting. Okay, that makes the class very interesting. Now let's look at please, the one who asks how do you check if an element exists? Yes, I'll come there. Okay, I'll come there. No worry. So let's now look at how to. Oh, it's left only 6 minutes. Wow. Okay, how do you remove and then add element to an object? Okay, so there are some inbuilt methods or functions for array that you should know. So they are pop, push, on shift, and then shift. Okay, pop, push, on shift, and then shift. Now let's make it very practical to you. Okay, let's make it very practical to you. So you take books, okay, and then you stack them. Okay, so for those of you who have done data structures before, there's a concept called queue. Okay, a concept called queue. Okay, so let me create another array. So let's
I think your screen is turned off. Can you guys see Isaac's screen?
Oh, really? Okay, let me share it again. I don't know why.
Can see it.
Yeah, I think you might have to check yours. Sorry about that. Yes, start queuing. Yes, start queuing. Thanks for the correction. Yeah, start queuing. Okay, so yes, I was creating an example. So I have, let's say, 2, and put some values here. Okay, so I have these elements. I have these elements as have these elements inside my ages array. Okay. Commonly, you should be looking at how to remove the last, how to add to the last, how to remove the first, how to add to the first. That's what the 4 things that I mentioned is going to do for you. That's what the 4 things I mentioned is going to do for you. So I said, oh, okay. So if I want to remove the last, last element, I am going to use the pop. Okay. So I'll just call the array. So pop. Okay. And then let me run the array now and see what we are having on the stack. What we're having on the stack. So ages. Okay. So we can see that 2 is no more there. Okay, 2 is no more there. If I want to remove the first one, I use the shift. Okay, so ages, shift, and let me just bring this in now. Okay, so I'm expecting 2 to be removed, and that has just been done. Very easy. That has just been done. The next thing is adding. Okay, the next thing is adding. So now I want to add to the last. Okay, I want to add to the last. So ages dot push. Okay. Now look at something. The moment I type the push, my code editor expects me to put a value there. And then the value, okay. So in program, we call it an argument, right? An argument there. So there is a parameter, okay, which is items, okay, which is items. Now I can put either string, I can put a number, or I can put objects. Okay, so someone is saying that, so how do you remove elements in between and not first or the last? Okay, so I will come to splice. Okay, you input the argument of value you wish to add to the array. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Yeah, that's good. So yes, Yemi, I'll come to splice. Okay, I'll come to splice. Okay. Okay, so what was I talking about? Yes, push. Yeah, I was talking about push. So let me put 9. Okay, so this what is going to happen to our code. Line 13 will remove 2. Line 14 will remove the first 2. Okay, and then line 15 will add 9 to the end. Okay. So this is what we are getting. So automatically, we should know that on shift is going to add value in front, or is going to add value at the 0th index. So let's check that and see. So let me put 10 here. And then I am getting this. I am getting this. Any question? I think I've done a lot of talking. Let me have your questions. Any question, please? Yes, Ekene, let's have a question. I hope that's your name. And I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah, that's my name.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
The question I actually wanted to ask is not pertaining array. It was related to objects, the objects you were talking about earlier.
That's fine.
When you printed out on the terminal the node objects earlier on, when it brought out the whole content of the house address is still in quotation.
Yeah.
So how do you remove the house? Because I know that when you want to access just the house address, when you want to print just the house address, you put it in quotation because of the space. But now that you are printing everything, how do we exclude the quotation? Let it just be the same way the others are, the other properties are.
Okay. I think I get the question that you are asking. So you don't want to see the quotation around this. Am I correct? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So if you are thinking of removing it, it won't work. Why wouldn't it work? Now, you are saying that object is key, the object properties, they are key value pair. Okay. The moment you assume that let's say you want a result where you won't have the quotation around, right? Then the compiler will be confused as to whether the house is the key or the address is the key. So if you don't want to deal with it at all, then you just do away with the space in between and then just write a camel case. So in that case, you're going to have house H being smaller, address A being capital. Does that answer your question? Does that answer your question, Ekene? Okay, so someone is also asking, how can you get the index of an array using its name? Okay, how do you do that? Let me talk about the length and then I'll come to those questions, okay? So now, cases where you are going to fetch data from a database, you may want to know the length of the data, okay? So there is a special property on arrays, okay? Special properties on arrays to do that. So if I want to check the length, let me go. So if I want to check the length of this, let me comment this one out. I want to check the length of the ages. I'll just add dot length. Okay. And then it's giving me the length, which is 5. And that is correct. Okay. So now let me come to the other functions or other methods in array that you should know. Okay. So for those of you who are asking questions, this will come over here. So array methods. Okay. So the array methods. And Ekene, on a second thought, let me add this. So if you are having like the house address, okay, and you want to remove it, just the same way you were able to access it using the square notation, you can use the square notation to remove it using the delete keyword, just by the way, okay? So let's come to the questions that we have. So we have 3 outstanding questions. Someone asked, how do you, let me go back so that I don't miss it. Someone asked, how do you check, correct me if I'm wrong, the person said, Okay, how do you check if an element is part of an array? The other question was, how do you, was it delete? Yeah, the person, I think the person said, how do you delete elements which are in between, right? Which are in between. Okay. And then the last question was, how can you get the index of an array? So I think the question I'm trying to ask is, how do you get an index or the index of an element in an array using its name? I think that's what it was. Is it Ianu? I think that's what Ianu is trying to ask. I think that is it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know. Okay, so to do that, to get the index of an element, so let me use the students. Let me comment these ones out so that it doesn't complicate things for us. So just to be sure, we can use double quotation to write our strings. Yes, you can. You can, but most likely your code editor would, if it's a string without space in between, your code editor will likely remove the strings. But yes, you can. Yeah, you can. Okay, so what was the question I was answering? Yeah, so checking the index of an element. So I want to check the index of let's say Thomas, right? So I'll call the array name students dot index of and then Thomas. Okay. I am thinking someone will ask the question, what happens if you don't type the name correctly? So before that, I am getting 2. So the index of Thomas is 2. Let's confirm if it is true. 0, 1, and then 2. 0, 1, and then 2. So that's correct. So out of curiosity, what if I have this? What happens? I'm having -1. Now, I want to tease your brains. I mean, I know some of you know why it's having -1. Can someone share with us, why am I having -1 as the index? Just anyone, anyone can just say it. Why am I having -1 as the index? Anyone? Someone is saying second to last item. No. Someone is saying that because it is the last element. No. Maybe you didn't get a question. What I've done here is that, you see, Thomas is having small t, right? But here I made a capital T. So I think, okay, someone say, I think because this element is not in the array. So simply, this -1 is by default, let me put it that way so I don't make a mistake. By default, it cannot be found. So it is now, cannot be found. So it is now. It is now. Okay, it is now. Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah. So yeah, you can see it. Not necessarily an error, but let's be careful when we are dealing with JavaScript. JavaScript, sometimes the types should be checked. Error can be something that is way different from now, way different from undefined. Okay. So let's use now. Or yeah, let's use now instead of error. Okay, error usually breaks code, okay, or breaks a program. So yeah. Okay. What other question hasn't been answered? Hold on, let me check. I think there are left with 2 questions to answer. Let me check. Okay, don't worry. I'll figure out the questions later on. Okay, so let's look at some. I think Marvelous. Do you mind if I borrow like 5 minutes of your time? If you don't mind. If you don't mind.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
Okay, all right, good. So the person who asked how to check if the array contains a value or contains a particular element. So there is another method. There are a lot of methods in array. So there are a lot of array methods that you should know. Okay, I've remembered the other question now. Good. So there's a method called includes. Okay, called includes. So let's put it in a practical scenario, right? You are fetching data. Okay, you don't know the data of marks. You don't know what is coming. So you want to check if there is a particular mark in the array that you are getting. For instance, you have students' data, and then you want to check if someone array loops. Yeah. I'll talk about that. Yeah. I don't know if the time will permit, but I'll try to do that. Yeah, so if you want to check, let's say, did any student score 50, right? Is any student score 50? You want to do something like that, okay? So console log, and then as usual, you call your, let me use the ages this time around, dot includes, okay? So that is this. So you can see over here, the parameter is what? The search element, and it is expecting a data type of number, okay? Because ages is having only numbers, right? So let's check, does it have 8 or does it include 8? Let me comment this one out. And it's giving me false. Oh, I didn't see this one. Okay, it's giving me false because 8 is not, or 8 cannot be found inside the ages. 8 cannot be found inside the ages, okay? All right, so the last question that was asked was, what if you want to remove element which is inside or in between, which is not in front or at the end of an array? Okay, so there is a very special method called splice. Okay, the splice is one a method. Okay, so basically the includes is a yes, it's a search property. No. So basically the includes is a search property for it's a search method. Okay, search method. But you can call it property because it's also an object property. Okay, so let me talk about the splice, and then maybe I will give an overview of how you look through an array, and then we can call it a night. So that's when we meet on, is it Marvelous, confirm, is it Friday or Saturday? The next session, is it? I don't know. I'm a bit confused. So the splice is in this format. It's in this format, okay? It's in this format. Now, the splice can be used to remove elements and at the same time be used to add elements, okay? Or replace elements in an array, okay? How does it work? So we have the ages array and elements at, let me change some of that. So element 2, 5, 24, 7, and then 4. Okay. So, okay, Saturday, thank you. So I want to, let's say, remove 5 and then 24, or let's say I want to remove 5 and then 24. How do I do that? Now, this is what the splice asks us to do, okay? Or this is what it expects. So I have, let's say, ages dot splice, okay? Now it first requests the start index, okay? So where does it delete from? So index 1, which is 5, right? Index 1 is 5. So 1, and then because I want to delete from 5, I want to delete 5 and then 24. You count up to the n minus 1. I'm being mathematical here. N minus 1 index. So meaning that if I want to delete 5 and then 24, 24 is index 3. Sorry, index 2. Okay. But here I'll use index 3. Okay. So this is what I mean. So let me do console.log ages. And then let me clear this. You can see what we're having. You can see what we're having. So sorry. 0, 1, 2. Okay, I think I made a mistake. So it starts from here, and then yeah. Okay, so I'm able to delete 5 and then 7. So 5 and then 24 from our array, and then it returns the remaining array for me. So now I'm having 2. So this being deleted, I'm having 2, 7, and then 4. So that is how you are able to delete elements which are within or in between, which is not in front or at the end of an array. Okay. Is there another question that I've not answered so far? Is there another question? Okay, so let me just touch on what Ekene was asking about how to look through arrays. So how to look through arrays, okay? So you know for loops already. I believe you all know for loops. I checked your calendar. It looks like you've done loops already. So you know for loops. Now there are other forms of looking through arrays that you should know. Okay, so talk of map, filter, and then reduce. Map, filter, and reduce. Now let's look at, okay, so what if you want to remove one element which is within? It's very simple. So if, let's say, I want to remove 7, so 7 is in the 0, 1, 2, 3. So 3 and 3. Okay. I'm missing something. Okay. Oh, sorry. So yes, you can use what was it? The delete key. There is a delete key. I'm making a mistake somewhere. Pardon me for that. I'm making a mistake somewhere. Pardon me for that. Yeah, but you can use a delete key. Use the delete key too. So you use a delete key, and then you identify the index of it. You calculate it. Okay. I think it's the number of elements you want to. Yes. Thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah. So it's supposed to be the count. I think I missed that. It's supposed to be the count. Okay. Okay. Thanks for the correction, Mauli. Yeah. Thanks for the correction. Okay. So yeah. So array index and then the number of fields. Yeah. So the number of counts. Oh yeah. Thanks very much. Okay. So let me talk about the map and then the filter. Then we can bring today's class to an end. Yeah, so what is the map supposed to do? Okay, but when you go, you can also read on slides. I think I was explaining slides instead of splice. Yeah. All right, thank you. Okay, so I think there's no question. Right, so what is the map supposed to do? Now, you will likely use map when you're going to print values of array of objects. Okay, value of array of objects. For instance, you have an array of students. Okay, and each student is represented as an object inside an array. Okay, inside an array. So if you want to print, let me just do a quick example so that it doesn't become just theoretical to you. So let you already have students. Okay, so let members to be equal to. Please, I hope you're following. If I miss anything or you didn't get anything, just let me know. Okay. So I have, let's say, ID 1, name. Okay. Let me just duplicate this and I change the value. Okay. So let me change this one to 2, 3, Emma. What's this? Something like this. Okay. So here I'm having array of okay. There's no question. So here I'm having array of objects, right? I'm having array of objects. And let's say I want to print the names, okay, of each object. The names of each object. I will use the map, okay? And what the map will do is that it will create another array out of what I'm having. To create another array out of what I'm having. So this is how you use it. So let me store the new array. So let's say new members, or let's say member names to be equal to. So members dot map. Okay, map always works with arrays. So you check that. So before I continue, have you done callback functions? You've done callback functions.
Not yet, and I also feel that the map is a bit
okay.
advanced for this,
advanced. Oh, okay. All right, then I'm not going there. Okay, I thought you had done that. It just came in mind. Right. So just an overview of what you have done so far. So today we have looked at what objects are, and we take objects from object-oriented programming perspective, where you model everything that you are building as an object. So if it's a student management system, you model a student, you look at the properties of a student, okay? But we are saying that in JavaScript, you can create an object without creating a class. And we said that object has properties. And so each property is in the form of a key value pair. Okay, each object is in the form of a key value pair, like I have over here. Okay, I was using let because I want to be able to change. I'm sure you understand the let and the difference between let and con, so I'm not going there. And we said that you can have different types of values being stored in an object. So it can be a Boolean value, it can be a number, it can be a string. And in cases where you use a key which has space in between, it's not advisable. Just to be straightforward with you, it's not advisable to be going by this route. It is best you use your camel casing approach so you don't confuse yourself. Okay, it's best you use a camel casing approach. So you don't have to deal with any square brackets. But as part of a developer's approach or principle, okay, or design principle, you don't know the design, you don't know the user of your system. So sometimes you consider some of these things. Okay. So if you're having a string like this, a key like this in a form like this, where there's a space between the strings, you use the square notation to do that. If not, use the dot notation. I've done the explanation already. You can also create a new property using the dot notation, and then you assign a value to it, and that would append itself to the object that you have. You can also delete an object property using the delete keyword. Okay. And then we came to an array. We looked at how you can create an array either by using the array constructor, or you use the squared bracket to create an empty array. Now, if you are using the array constructor, you can set the size of the array, okay? If not, you can just leave it and then it becomes a dynamic array size for you. Right. We also looked at how you can access the elements in an array. We said that you do that by using the index, okay? And then we said the index starts from 0 all the way to the last but 1, or the length minus 1 value, okay? Meaning that if the length of the array is 10, you start from 0 to 10 minus 1, which is 9, okay? And then we looked at some basic methods in array: the pop, the shift, the push, and then the unshift. So we said pop is to remove the last element, the shift is to remove the first element, the push is to remove the push is to add an element to the end of the array. The unshift is to add elements in front of the array. And then someone asked, how do you know the index of an element? We said you use the index of method, where you pass the element name or the element as an argument. We realize that when you misspell the element, you are getting a null value index, which is -1. Another person asked, how do you check if an element exists? Simply use the includes, and then you pass the search key, okay? All right, so this is all that we can cover for today. Sorry, I have used more than the time that was allocated to me. I do hope that I can stay within the constraints of the time the next time that we meet. If there is any question, feel free to ask. You can leave a question with Marvelous, and then I can answer the next time.
Yeah, so for those of you that have more questions, of course, you can leave the question in the Discord room, and we'll pick up those questions, for the next session on Saturday. Thank you very much, Isaac. I mean, I really enjoyed this session myself, and I believe a lot of people on this call enjoyed the session as well. So yeah, so if you have any other question, kindly drop it on Discord, and we'll see you in the next class. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening, Isaac.
All right. I also appreciate you inviting me over for this short lesson, and I hope to see everyone and even more people joining the Saturday session. All right. It's been a wonderful time with you. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Yeah, same here. Bye.
Bye, Isaac. Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.